Video games are no longer made by developers. On Steam, neural networks generate them on demand for subscribers. Every game is unique, with its own gameplay and its own lore. Even multiplayer has become personal, now played entirely by single players. You can't plant the bomb on DE Dust with your mates anymore, because your DE Dust isn't the same as theirs. Platforms used to sell games where the code was a constant, and if a player kept dying to a particularly difficult boss, they could only try again and again, until frustration eventually pushed them to leave the game, switching to a competing service where something better suited to their skill level was always available. At moments like this, the platform lost the player, and more importantly, their subscription fee. Now the code is afloat, and neural networks rebuild the game using each player's gameplay statistics. At launch, the system releases a small hotfix, making the boss beatable and allowing the player to continue. The player stays, the subscription renews, and the platform calls that balance. The idea of a canonical storyline disappears. The player joins an order of paladins to take part in yet another final battle against an ancient evil, while the system records the outcome as it always does. After collecting the data, it quietly revises the objective, until, by the next session, the player is simply asked to stay in the village tavern and wash the dishes. Games gradually become too personal to share. You can no longer watch a finished speedrun because it has to be discovered individually. Game reviews turn into esoteric, deeply personal diaries that confuse viewers, while 5-star ratings become meaningless, like reviewing a dream you once had. Game reviews were eventually replaced by game archives, which no longer preserved the games themselves but only records of them. One archived game lasted 37 seconds, in which the player, cast as a teacup searching for its saucer, fell off a table. The end. Another lasted 12 hours, during which the player organized a library according to a classification system they had invented themselves, later labeled by the archive as meditative. Classic games disappeared, leaving behind only descriptions of other people's experiences. Games could no longer be discussed with friends, as everyone ended up in their own virtuality. No one says you're finally awake in the real world anymore. The uniqueness of games meant the end of multiplayer. It became impossible to even find another player for a one-on-one match, let alone assemble a party for a dungeon raid for loot. This threatened the collapse of the entire gaming industry. The solution was the creation of the Virtuality Translation Protocol, Instance Protocol, or VTP-IP for short, which allowed different game worlds to synchronize within a single online environment. The current version of Protocol 3.14 resolved a known issue where freezing spells did not affect light-armored vehicles. Multiplayer became truly multi. It no longer connected just players, but entirely different universes. Dark elves, orcs, mouse tanks, and space marines on the same server. The algorithm simply recorded events on the server. Character 7836 attempted to deal damage to Actor 57361 with a health parameter of 40,000 points, but the line trace did not register a collision. A second later, Character 3895 successfully applied a damage value, reducing the target's health by 23 hit points. In reality, or rather, in our shared reality, both players were participating in the same battle, fighting the same enemy through entirely different personal worlds. One player, known online as Ultra Destroyer, was skipping school to play as a knight attempting to defeat a mithril dragon. His teammate, a nutrition blogger resting after a night shift, was at that exact moment fighting a giant bottle of mayonnaise slowly emerging from the refrigerator of an industrial kitchen. The third member of their team, a captain of an intergalactic cruiser, could not join the battle that day, having forgotten to pay the internet bill. The visual layer and meshes remained on the client side, forming a unique world for each player. The server operated only on state parameters: position, collisions, damage, and health, synchronizing events and maintaining simulation consistency, regardless of how the game appeared to each participant. In essence, it was a glorified spreadsheet, tracking who you are, where you are, and how close you are to not being there anymore. A side effect of this architecture was the rapid growth of the in-game economy. Items that once belonged to specific character classes became universally compatible across genres and worlds. A paladin's armor from a Halloween loot box could now function as additional plating for a tank or a ballistic vest for a stormtrooper, because on the server it was simply a modifier. Armor plus 15, speed minus 5. Players continued trading items, but in practice, they were trading numbers. Automatic difficulty adjustment, already popular in single-player experiences, extended into multiplayer environments. The server analyzes player performance statistics and applies corrective coefficients in real time. If a player is losing too quickly, the system quietly increases accuracy and damage output. If a player performs above average, the server introduces a handicap, slightly reducing effectiveness. As a result, the system steadily moves match outcomes toward a statistically perfect, conflict-free balance of 50-50. Games became more equal than ever before, and perhaps a little more alike. If your spearman has ever defeated a tank, let us know in the comments. Leave a like if you don't see anything strange about this, and subscribe so you don't miss news from the strange but fascinating future of games.